Boxing fans, critics, and analysts, Renee Box Young with you. Boxing Then and Now, part 4 of this great series with our honorable guests. It's so great to have everybody here. Those who are coming in, those who will be coming in, and those who tune in after the show, thank you so much. We're going to talk some great stuff, part 4, a repeat of the series, down below the video description of this series we're having right now of this live session are the bullet points we're going to talk about. So let's get into it. First and foremost, let's welcome our guests of the show. You guys know who they are, right? Boxing Conversations with Reggie Owens, Stormy B-Man, Kurtis Anderson. First and foremost, Reggie Owens, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, man. Can't complain. And Saturday, so I'm going to be on this grill in a minute, but dealing with this extreme heat in Vegas. I think it's up to like 115, 117 out here. So be out here in this heat after we finish this.
Nice. What you got cooking today? What you going to cook?
Oh, ribs. Man, I'm always on this grill, man. That's my hobby outside of doing boxing talk is grilling.
Heck yeah, man. Sounds great. You should do a little mini YouTube snippet. Show us your grill, man.
Right on.
Stormy B-Man, how you doing, brother? All good?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good, man. Thanks for having me, bro.
You should do a little. Always. It's an honor to have you guys, man. Always. Kurtis Anderson, how you doing, brother?
Hey, Renee Box Young, man. Great to be here, man. I'm doing great, man. It's hot here. We're in the midst of a heat wave, mid-90s, but the difference with New Jersey weather is sticky and there's a lot of humidity. So I've just been under the air conditioner all week, man, and just taking it easy.
Definitely, man. We're in the summer season, getting hot down here. It's nice down here. We're in the rainy season, also in the summertime down here in Mexico. It's pretty nice. So good to have you guys all here. We see people entering the building. Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in. Remember to get them likes up, subscribe to the guests. Obviously, Boxing Conversation with Reggie Owens. He has his backup channel, which is Boxing Conversations Reggie Owens 2. Also, Stormy B-Man, Kurtis Anderson. If he plans to have something open up in the future, right? Go ahead and subscribe to him. It's all good. Well, go ahead and subscribe. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Keep that virtual door open. So let's get right to it, man. So we have been seeing recently, right, videos going viral, this and that, with Mr. Gary Russell and Terrence Bud Crawford. We see them going back and forth, ranting and raving about an issue that they had back in the amateurs. They were preparing in some sparring camp in the Olympics. Word has it that Gary Russell clocked Terrence Bud Crawford in the chin, supposedly broke it, but who knows? From what I heard, it didn't, and then they did, and whatever, right? Back and forth. But the point I want to get to is this, that, Gary Russell's telling Bud Crawford, you know what? Make the fight then. Make the fight. And we know that Gary Russell's a smaller guy, obviously. This kind of reminds me of Rigondeaux, Guillermo Rigondeaux moving up to fight Lomachenko. This kind of resonates that, Gary Russell's a smaller guy, around 120 pounds, right? And Bud Crawford, obviously, in the welterweight division. I do not know exactly Gary Russell's walk-around weight, probably near the welterweight division. So, I have my personal opinions, but first and foremost, I want to hear you guys. Reggie Owens, what do you think about all this, man?
Me, I just think it's Gary putting a little bit of attraction around his name. He is a fighter, and that's the one thing I give him. He is a guy who seems determined to fight, calling out guys. He is another one of these fighters who is avoided. And the funny thing is that fans of these other fighters have allowed their fighters, or the fighters that they kind of corral around and claim as their own, to walk away and avoid this dude. They have allowed these fighters to duck him. And so now, in his desperation, he's calling out other fighters, calling out fighters in heavier divisions, just so he can get a fight. We see Lil Santa Cruz doing the maneuvers he's been doing, Abner Mares maneuvering around the guy. So he can't get these fights. So his next thing is to try to call people up and wait. So it's an unfortunate thing for him. Unfortunate that crap like that is allowed without people being stripped away, knocked down lower within rankings. Too much of the popularity has been allowed based on who fighters have as a fan base, all this other crap. So him trying to move up in weight could be another Rigondeaux thing. We seen Rigondeaux had to go through the same kind of crap to get a fight, attempting to move up in way too high up in divisions. And I think the same thing would happen to Gary Russell if he moved up in these other divisions. And even him talking about moving in the welterweight division when it came about him and Crawford, the dude can't even get up to 147. He said he'll try to make the weight, but the weight will drop right up off of him. What happened with what everybody's speaking about him punching Crawford wasn't he clearly I don't know why people were putting in their other videos that he broke his jaw, because he clearly stated he just busted his lip and he had to get stitches for it. But him speaking as being some tough guy, he's probably a tough guy, but to speaking as if he can whoop Terrence Crawford ass I think he's just blowing smoke. He's also a guy, he got Napoleon complex. But he's a fighter. At the end of the day, he's a fighter, and he's true to what he speaks. He's a fighter who wants to get in there and fight. But Crawford is the wrong fight. They were much younger when this occurred. It just came from a question, because it was a question. I don't know if someone in the chat asked, put it in a super chat when Fred had asked it. But then when it came out, he spoke about what led to it. Crawford talking to him in a certain manner. So it wasn't like it was a sucker punch. You talking to someone that way, expect for fists to fly. So he was in the right to punch him that way. But now it's grown legs, and it's grown excitement around Gary Russell's name and excitement around what happened. But him moving up to fighting Crawford, nah, I don't see it happening. And if he did try it, that'd be the last fight Gary Russell will probably fight, to where things will probably change for him. But that's all I got on that.
You know, as you said, you know, Gary Russell, he's a fighter, man. He's a fighter. And, you know, this is my input on it, as far as just a little snippet here before we go to Stormy B. You know, I think that, you know, maybe they should just meet up at 140 and fight. Stop this whole back and forth. You know, you said this, I said that. Just let's get it on. Let's get it on. 140, let's meet up. Let's fight. You know, why is Gary Russell and, you know, why are they going so much back and forth? I get it. They're fighters. They're going to do it. But, you know, when it comes to when they're doing this, you just got to fight, man. Get it down and see what happens, right? I mean, I respect both. Great fighters, man. But, you know, that's just what I think about it. What Stormy B, what do you think about it, man?
Not much. I'd rather talk about cheeseburgers. These guys, you know what? I'm losing a lot of respect for these fighters of today. Gary Russell has been a professional for how many years?
Yeah.
Terrence Crawford has been a professional for how many years? Their paths crossed when they were amateurs, so they are familiar and are aware of one another because they've been in the presence and company of one another. What took place all those years ago when they were amateurs doesn't mean diddly poo to today.
Right.
The man needs to be going out there the proper way and just fight. Get his management and promoter together and put together fights. Get before the public eye. Let people see you in the ring. So far, he's the longest reigning champion in the sport right now, but he fights once a year.
Exactly, yeah.
And most of the time when he fights guys you don't know anyway. He was defeated by Lomachenko. I didn't hear him clamoring and calling out Lomachenko for a rematch or dogging him or something like that to the point that would make that man want to get him in the ring again. He's been around trolling Leo Santa Cruz, who obviously don't want to fight him for whatever reason it is. I won't consider it necessarily fear, because it takes a lot of cojones to get in the ring, period. So anyone that you get in there with, once they go upside your head, it's a dangerous thing, because a blow to the head could end you.
Yep.
Okay, so why doesn't he just go get his management together and start pulling guys out of the woodwork like Tyson Fury did? Those two guys that Tyson Fury fought in between his fights with Deontay Wilder, nobody knew who the hell they were. Okay, but he fought them.
Yeah, true.
And it was televised. So guess what? Gary Russell can do the same thing. He can go out there and have them bring guys from Ireland, from Australia, or whatever to get in the ring with him. Pay the guys a payday so you can stay active, stay in the public's eye, and people might take hold to you if they like the way you fight. But all of this is very ugly because it doesn't have diddly poo, like I said, to do with boxing today. They are two far away from one another in weight class to even be talking about anything legitimate. And so now this is what it resorts to. We already have some type of debacle going on where you're going to see two old men from the sport who are has-beens and had their day at one time. And here they are right front, smack dead in the center of things again, when it should be other people like Gary Russell Jr. So it's like, what are these guys doing? That's why I have I'm losing respect for them. And that's all I really have to say about that subject, because it does nothing for me. It does nothing for them. And it really points out for those of us who've been around the sport and to witness the sport for any length of time, how far it has fallen from grace of being respectable.
Real quick, Stormy, just a quick question on you on that. Like, why do you think, or maybe you've heard throughout the years with Gary Russell, why is he so inactive? Is it on his part that he's just not being real vocal and aggressive, or, reaching out there to fight? You think he's comfortable maybe?
It doesn't matter what I think, but that's the type of question that should be posed to him when people have microphones around him.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's funny how nobody asks those type of questions.
Yep.
So who would I be to answer for him? Instead of talking about Terrence Crawford or something, he should explain to the public, why should we even bother to pay a ticket to watch you fight? And why aren't you fighting more regular? That's the type of questions that should be posed to him.
True. Very true. Wonder why they're not asking him that. Very, very, very true. What about you, Kurtis? What do you think about this whole fiasco between Gary Russell and Bud?
This is, to me, clickbait material, to get people's attention. They can never fight. Gary's way too small. Crawford wouldn't gain anything by it. Gary just, running off at the mouth, trying to get attention on his name, because he only fights once a year. And you don't know who he's fighting. I believe his last fight was against a fighter named King Tut. Gary is the type of fighter that doesn't love boxing. He likes it, and I'm quite sure it pays the bills. And he's comfortable, Renee. Fighting once a year. He wants the big fight because pretty soon he'll be retiring. But Leo don't want to fight him, and other people. So he has to stay busy. Being in a ring against nobody, I guess, is better than not fighting. We don't know who he's going to fight next. Maybe a mandatory, a no-name guy, but Gary should be more vocal. I mean, he tried the thing with Santa Cruz father. I really didn't like it, using, your a potential opponent father against him, anything to get him in the ring. It didn't work. Now he's mouthing off. So he should concentrate on his career rather than calling out somebody he can never fight. He's just what we call sandbagging and, clickbait material. Basically, this is much to do about nothing. I've been out the loop on YouTube, but I did hear about it. Stormy told me about it. I saw it on my community page. I didn't bother to look into it because, this relates to the social media question down the line. But I didn't pay much attention to it. I'm disappointed in Gary Russell's career. It's going to be incomplete. He's a good fighter, but, he wasted a lot of time. He did fight Lomachenko. He did call him out, but after that, he, went away from it. I guess he figured the fight would never be made because of the promotional companies or what have you. It's the same thing. Guys join at each other, good fights or hard. They make it hard to make, so this is much to do about anything. And like Stormy said, I'd rather talk about cheeseburgers.
Definitely. Let's talk about the cheeseburgers at Reggie Owens, them ribs that he's going to have in his barbecue later. Heck yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree, man, with all you guys. I mean, Reggie Owens, he has a lot of talent, a lot of potential, and it looks like he's just not putting it to use these past couple years, man, past few years in the sport of boxing, man, unfortunately, and I tend to agree with that, Kurtis, that I just think he's comfortable now with those yearly paychecks he's receiving, and then, it is what it is, man, and we'll see what happens. Phenomenal Mexican, thank you so much for joining, man. Thank you so much. Salute, brother. Thanks so much for joining on our series today. Let's get to the next topic here. We're going to talk about, we got judges in boxing, okay? Let's talk about judges, all right? now we're going to get into the nitty gritty and the heart of this series here, as far as this show is concerned today, and judges in the sport of boxing. I mean, there are all types of judges. We know that when it comes to scoring in boxing, they don't just score offense. You know what I mean? There's one thing, as a matter of fact, yesterday, I had a reporter on the show. We had a show, me and her on the channel, and, a boxing reporter here in Mexico, in Milenio, it's called, a news broadcast here in Mexico. And, she talks about, that now it seems like now there's a better opportunity for judges to score a little bit more precisely because there isn't a crowd. And sometimes the crowd, I mean, that's not everything she said, but this is like a little part we talked about that, sometimes the crowd can sway judges in a fight, which shouldn't be like that. You know what I mean? Because many times, you have an arena or stadium full of fans of a particular fighter. And, just by throwing a punch and it's blocked, the whole crowd is like, yeah, like as if it landed cleanly, which is many times not the case, so we know that, offense isn't the only thing that is judged. We talk about ring generalship and things of that nature, defense also, so there are several things to judge in the sport of boxing when it comes to judging, right? We know that there have been corrupt judges also, recently. I mean, recently in the past, 10 years or so, we're talking about Adelaide Byrd, how she, scored, I think it was with Canelo versus Mayweather. I think one of the scores was a draw, if I'm not mistaken, when clearly Floyd Mayweather dominated Canelo in that fight. He just dominated, man. So that was a really, really controversial issue there with Adelaide Byrd, if I'm not mistaken, was in that fight, judging that fight, one of the judges at least. So when it comes to judges in the sport of boxing, let's start with Kurtis. Kurtis, do you see like a comparison? Are they the same now as far as judges in the sport right now, and how they judge? Is judging more precise nowadays compared to judges back in the day? How do you see that, Kurt?
Well, judges back in the day appreciated the technical aspect of boxing. That will be footwork and defense and body punching. Today's judges like effective aggression, but many fighters, when they come forward, they're not effective. So the judges back then were more appreciative of the sport, in general. There's a lot of corruption in boxing. I know this because I know people that's close to judges, and I know judges. Larry Hazard Jr. is a judge from Newark. I know his father, Larry Hazard, who was the commissioner of New Jersey boxing. He was a referee in the 80s. There was this steakhouse in New York called Gallagher's, and I used to go there. They used to have boxing press conferences, right? There were judges there who used to eat dinner with Don King. This is a very true story. Don King had boxing in his back pocket because he would give them perks, free hotel rooms, chips to gamble, money, gifts. I know that as fact. That's true right there. So judges has been on the take since day one. Even though, judges back then know how to score the fight better than present judges, they were on the take too. Certain promoters used to give them gifts and, cars and, credit line for clothes, anything you can name of, judges used to get, so when one of the worst scoring fights I ever seen was Axel Schultz. He was a heavyweight from Germany. He fought George Foreman. I thought he dominated George Foreman for 9 to 10 rounds. An easy win, but they gave it a Foreman. Because of politics, you may have a bigger name. You look at Oscar De La Hoya versus Felix Sturm. There's a big fighter on the horizon. He was going to fight Bernard Hopkins, and they gave the fight to De La Hoya where Sturm clearly won. But if you have a big name, you're going to get the benefit of the doubt. And not only that, judges may be familiar with you. They may have a personal relationship with the fighter, but they're not going to show you that. This is all behind the scenes stuff, because there's a lot that go on before the fight. Like the network will interview the fighter and you can have the judge that can be in a lobby, and I'm a fighter, and I see this judge 3 or 4 times. We develop a friendship. Now, how are you going to have a judge, that develops a friendship of a fighter, and he's judging that fighter on his performance, whether he won or not? His personal feelings is going to come into play, and it becomes a conflict of interest. So it's very it's almost impossible to pick a judge who doesn't have a interest in a fighter, or he may have a bet on that particular fighter, and he has the power to offset any decision with his accurate or inaccurate scoring. There's a lot wrong with boxing, man, and but corruption and judging has always been in boxing since day one. That will never change, because how boxing, the integral parts. You have to bring in somebody who's from another country, or they try to do that. That's why you see judges from different parts of the country.
That. Yeah,
you notice that, right? That's why that's one of the they don't like to have a fighter from, let's say, Los Angeles, and the judge be from Los Angeles. So they try to have a judge from different countries, but that don't work, because once he become Americanized and he around a fighter, and then it becomes conflict of interest. But number one, there's always been corruption in judging. The way boxing is, it's hard to get a judge because you want an experienced judge, but referee, judges, promotional companies, they always been corrupt. I can tell you some horror stories, but it's always been corrupt in boxing. It just, you just hope that, while they try to make it whereas they being fair, but most judges are not fair. I heard that from the horse's mouth.
Wow. We have seen so many fights just in this decade, past decade and stuff, that so many robberies, have occurred. One comes to mind, the woman fight. I don't remember who it was against. I forgot. I know it was Katie Taylor, though. I don't remember what main event, what card that was. I think it was a DAZN card. Katie Taylor, most people thought that Katie Taylor lost, and she's having a rematch actually with the same opponent. And thank you. Yeah. Are they fighting? Is it today or is it one of these days? I don't remember. Do you know when that fight's going to be, the rematch?
I know it's coming up. I gotta check the schedule. It's very soon.
Yep. I think
go
it's
ahead.
on the blue and white undercard.
Okay. Yeah, so they're gonna have a rematch. I'm rooting for Katie's opponent. But we'll see, right? I mean, that's just one example of many, many just robberies, we can say, right? I mean, there are so many examples. Reggie, Owens, what can you say about that? Concerning judges. Like what Kurtis was saying, it looks like, back in the day, since day one, it's been around as far as corruption. Do you think, what do you think just about the topic in general, Reggie, about judges in boxing?
Corruption is to human, error is to human. It has always existed. But even when you look at the sport, when I hear about the early days of the sport, is how the mafia influence. And the mafia influence wasn't in there just to set up the sport. It was to corrupt the sport, as they have always been dabbled in. The mafia has always dabbled in corrupting of industry. So boxing was heavily corrupted back then. Don't know how you can get around it, especially with people who are trying to live a normal life. Of course, they can go about corrupting, intimidating weaker people within society with no protections. So going in, greasing the palm of a judge or threatening a judge to sway and influence a fight, influence a card. And even back then you had where the referee acted as a judge right there. So you get a lot of people, almost how Kurt was saying with Don King, taking judges out to dinner. So I'm pretty sure a lot of that was being done back then, especially with a lack of oversight. Wasn't people there to, do the private investigating, of seeing who these judges are out with, who they're speaking with. Phone calls weren't able to be tracked like that. And I don't know if they can track them like that with boxing today, but nothing has really changed when it comes to that. That side of human evolution is slow as hell. So what's to say that you can change these people from being corrupted, especially with boxing today? It doesn't seem like it's really regulated. Who enforces law within the sport of boxing? You see controversial decisions. What happens to these judges? Are they brought under some type of trial, or are they questioned or any of that, interrogated, made to review it? You don't hear any of that, even in some of the worst decisions. Like the worst one I ever seen was Felix Strom versus Oscar De La Hoya. That was bull crap, and it was soiled in boxing politics. One of the most corrupted things I've seen in recent boxing. Adelaide Bird thing was questionable as well. So it's hard to get around, especially with the influence of money being spewed around. Who knows how much these judges are making for a fight? If a promoter is slipping them an envelope with something greater than what they'll earn for judging a fight that night, and then also looking down the line of bigger payouts for these bigger fights, is what happened with Oscar De La Hoya, is a setup for that Bernard Hopkins fight, which shouldn't have occurred if boxing wasn't so morally corrupted. So nothing changes, man. It's just the way of the world. When you don't have things that are regulated, there's no regulations, you're going to see corruption rear its head up in everything you do. Governments are corrupted. Companies are corrupted. Society is corrupted. So it's hard to get away with. It's just part of human. It's just the nature of human beings. Like I say, with errors to things, especially when you don't have where there's another side. Usually things have equal and opposite sides, and you don't get that. You just get to where corruption is allowed to run amok, and no one stands up against it. So you're going to always have it there. No one has oversight in the sport of boxing. I think it's just been structured. It's been presented to whoever is supposed to be legislated or has it to structure itself, and then they just go about doing their own business and let these folks run the game by themselves without ever drawing question to it. Boxing is corrupted at a sanctioning level. It's corrupted at a commissioning level, which you've seen in that recent fight with the two girls. You seen how corrupted the damn sport was. It was no way that girl should have got in there. Yeah. Oscar can go in there, pay off whoever he pays off to get a girl who ain't done nothing to earn a fight against a champion, a girl who fought opponents her opponents ain't never won a fight. And then she get in the ring with a champion, almost gets killed in the ring. And now you have, after the fact, the commissioner apologizing, saying he sees the fight should have never happened. So why did the fight happen in the first place? Who is to punish that commissioner? We don't know. Also, when he damn, I ended up losing my thought on. It was another point I had about that. With the Devin Haney thing, you have to where they're trying to get a fight with Gamboa, and now it's a rule with the WBC that a champion can't fight nobody out of the top 15. Why would a champion be allowed to fight someone in the top 15? I think the sport should be where a champion fights somebody within the top 5. I don't even know about top 10, but the thing is, Eddie Hearn is supposed to go down to Mexico to speak with the president of WBC to argue a case for Gamboa to be moved up in his ranking. How can anything like that be allowed? So if you can do that at a sanction level, of course you can do that at the scores tables with these judges. So, but that's my point. I don't think nothing has changed when it comes to that, except there's cameras around a little bit more, but who knows who's watching what. But that's all I got.
Interesting. I'm just reflecting on all the things you guys are saying. Kurtis mentioned earlier that, correct me if I'm wrong, Kurtis, that you mentioned that you're right. The judges, judge, footwork more, fighting on the inside. They scored better back in the day. Me in my innocent mind, you know what I'm saying? With boxing nowadays, I actually thought judges scored better now. But, that's why we have the OGs here, to enlighten us historically, concerning all these topics. It seems like the judges nowadays, the only scrutiny that I have seen that they go under when it comes to whack judging or, incorrect, imprecise judging is is a reporter from social media, from YouTube, a YouTube channel media member goes up to them and, hey, why did you judge it like that? I mean, it looks like that's the only scrutiny that they face. It looks like, according to what you guys are saying and what we see in the sport of boxing, that judges don't even have to be accounted, liability. They have no liability. They're not they don't have to, there's no congressional, body where they have to come and, be like Reggie Owens was saying right now. So they can't be tried. They can't be, it's just all, wild, wild west, So what do you think, Stormy B, about all this with judges in boxing?
I think Kurt initially broke it down perfectly for you. Because when you look at how judges score fights, you kind of can summarize it as they're giving someone so many rounds, but are they really watching the battle, what's transpiring in there? Now, given there are some fights that are kind of one-sided and very easy to just give a round, obviously, to someone else, but even in those instances, you have judges giving rounds to people that they shouldn't have received, and then in the end, decisions are close, too close to for comfort. Draws come about when it should have been clearly a victory for a particular fighter, and they are never held accountable for that. It's like when you make a joke and you take your glasses off and you put them up to someone else's eyes and say, tell me, what do you see? What are you looking at? You understand? Because when they're not held accountable,
Yeah, you there, bro?
I don't know, something happened.
Yeah, it looks like yeah.
Yeah, he'll come back. I'll just pause when he comes back.
Go ahead.
Judges respect the footwork so much, Renee, that Willie Pep, great Italian fighter, he won a round without throwing a punch because of his footwork and feinting.
Wow.
They admired his style, so much that the guy didn't land a punch and Willie Pep didn't throw a punch, but it has to be effective aggression, to me, but, judges back then were better, they respected certain aspects of the sport better yesteryear than today, so, that's my take on it. Stormy, you there?
I'm back. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead, brother.
I'm sorry. I don't know what that was. I was just talking and it just cut off on me.
No problem, man. Continue. Go ahead.
No, but at the end of the day, what I was trying to say is like when Reggie mentioned about the sanctioning bodies, it's like they never catch anybody, do they? But they're there in place to stop these things.
Right.
What in the world is really going on? There is so much money swarming around boxing that everybody seems to be getting their pockets lined, with the exception of the really people who deserve it. And that's the fighters themselves who put their lives on the line when they get in that ring. There is so much money to be made in boxing. And so even like now, when they're talking about, well, we really want to, bring the sport fully back when the crowds can be there, dude, they can pay these guys right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Whatever their contracts call for right now, because there's so much money swarming the sport. And anyone who should be underpaid and hardly paid are these judges, because they are the ones who are taking envelopes left and right, under the table, behind the back doors, in the dressing rooms and everything. You heard George Foreman recently mention that they paid a referee for the fight in the Rumble in the Jungle $20,000 to not disqualify George. If he knocks Ali down or whatever, don't disqualify him, because he was known for hitting people when they were down and stuff like that, which I found kind of iffy, because I was trying to look for some tape on George knocking people down and hitting them while they were down and stuff. Right. And the closest thing I saw from that was when he hit Ken Norton, who was sitting on the ropes when he hit him a second shot before he went down. But I don't really recall George hitting anybody on the way down or while they were down. So that was kind of interesting. But he did actually come out and reveal that. So who knows how many other envelopes were passed? You understand? So these judges, I'm sorry, you can actually get former fighters to judge fights probably better, because at least, you know, depending upon what type of fighter the fighter was, he may give more points for a guy who's aggressive because he fought aggressively, or vice versa. Or it could be a guy who likes a certain type of style personally, and he's more inclined to, you know, give that person points. So if you do have that, at least define it. Like if you got a fighter like Floyd Mayweather, and then you have a fighter like a Manny Pacquiao or something like that, that you have a judge that represents both kind of styles. And then somebody could be the tiebreaker, because, you know, one guy's going to be more, these guys going in there and just marking off rounds for guys, and then the fight be a draw or be an underhanded decision in the proper manner. And then they go away and say, well, that's how I saw it. Get the hell out of here with that. I don't like it.
Very true. That's an interesting point you talk about, Stormy B, that, you know, some fighters, you know, I think they would be great judges. You know, like, for example, we have former fighter, you know, heavyweight champ Lennox Lewis. I love hearing him on ringside commentary. You know, as ringside commentator, I love listening to him, the way he speaks, the way he explains himself, the way through the lens of a legend in boxing, you know, through his lens and how he explains and breakdowns fights while he's watching a fight in ringside. I love listening to him. Another guy I like to listen to is Keith Thurman, you know, as ringside commentator. Amazing. I love hearing him, the way he explains, you know, the details of a fight while it's happening. You know, I think you're right there, man, that it would be nice to consider at least, you know, maybe a retired fighter or what have you. Another fighter I like to hear is Caleb Plant. Sometimes he has been ringside on PC fights, you know, on Fox. You know, I love listening to fighters. Abner Mares, I think, as a matter of fact, I think he replaced Paulie Malignaggi, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I think he just tweeted recently that, you know, thanks for the opportunity or something like that along those lines, that I think he took his place. So, you know, I like hearing Abner Mares also as ringside commentator. I think they would be great judges. I think, you know, former fighters, you know, or fighters maybe now, right? You know, certain ones, obviously, you know, carefully picked and chosen. I think they would serve as great judges. Do you think so, Reggie?
Wait, say that again. I'll have my kids in the background.
It's all good. It's all good. Do you think, because Stormy B talked about that a moment ago, he mentioned that you know, fighters, maybe some fighters would be great judges. I personally think they would. You know, certain fighters would be good judges. Do you think so?
That could possibly work. Wasn't Wilcox or somebody a ref at one time? Oh no, you're saying judges.
Yeah, judges.
Man, it depends, because some of these fighters carry their own personal jealousies towards other fighters, and I think it can be a conflict. I mean, but then you will vet out who you have in there judging fights. So, I mean, they're no different than any other human being in society. If you have fighters who respect the sport, don't come with so much of that competitive stuff within the game, because all humans have errors into the way they observe things. So I don't know. I think some of them be greater commentaries, but I don't know about judging. I think some of them can be bitten by the same virus that affects a lot of other judges, and that's them being corrupted as well. So I don't know. They're human to me still.
Very true. Very true. And let's go to the chat real quick. I love it. Love it, guys. Thank you guys so much, man. Phenomenal Mexican. Salute my guy. I'm going to go down to the beginning. CJ Ross talking about Harold Letterman here. It was a horrible, unofficial Do you guys agree with that? That Harold Letterman, I think it was an HBO, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he was horrible.
Why is that? Can you expound a little bit upon that? Yeah, I agree. But why, Kurtis? Do you have any certain...
I have no idea. The guy wasn't biased at all. He wasn't racist. He was not. He was he just seen things differently. It's amazing that you know, 5 guys can have 5 different opinions about the same fight.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. Wasn't he an actual judge at one point?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, I think him and his daughter.
Wow, wow. Stormy B, what do you think about that about Harold Letterman? Maybe it's off there, huh?
Oh, I'm
It's off.
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
It's tough coming off of mute sometimes.
No problem.
I think that Harold Letterman is a perfect example of a person who, on a given night, he can do something in as far as scoring as a judge, and he'll have it. And then most nights, it's like you have to scratch your head and wonder, where is he coming from? What is he looking at? I think that he, for the most part, people hated him. I certainly didn't like his judging and his scoring, but again, when you have someone that is really far removed from the sport, like Harold Letterman, I don't think Harold Letterman ever took a punch in his life, which he should have taken several for some of his scorecards. But I'll say this: when someone is so far removed from the sport is allowed to sit up there and dictate and maybe have an influence on the outcome of a match, where people put their lives, to stress that when men fight in the ring, they put their lives on the line. And there's something to see these guys who go home to their families and live a certain type of privilege of lifestyle can have such an impact. Like, I don't like that at all.
Right.
I don't like it at all. So to hell with, I'm sorry, but to hell with Harold Letterman and the judges like him, huh? And the woman judge that you guys mentioned earlier, her too, out here cheating. Okay, cheating people out of their opportunities. And we know that they're not doing it on their own accord. They're doing it by influence. And those influences come from behind the scenes, as Kurt alluded to earlier, that these associations and affiliations that the common public don't know, the paying public doesn't know, and even to a lesser degree, the fighters in their camps don't know. They may know of some things, but they don't know of all of them. In other words, just the controversy that we've had out of the Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury rematch, right? There's supposed to be people on hand to take care of everything, and point where some people are just totally trying to ignore it as if it didn't happen. Some are trying to backtrack and say, well, that couldn't possibly happen because we have people in place. Well, shit still happens. And nobody's doing anything about that, right? If you are carrying some kind of illegal substance into an airport or whatever, and you happen to slip by the inspectors and everything, that doesn't mean they weren't doing their job, but that also doesn't mean that you didn't commit the crime.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean, you have to have people in place, and then when something is found out, you got to have an action taken against it, to bar against it happening again in the future, or to lessen the chances and opportunities for it to happen in the future. And who's lessening the chances and opportunity for cheating or point shaving or bad judging in boxing so it doesn't happen in the future? Nobody's putting that into action yet.
Very true, man. Very true. So great input concerning Harold Letterman and other judges, right? In general. I mean, great stuff, man. Bruce Goes says, salute OGs. Thanks so much, Bruce Goes, for tuning in, man. Stormy B, man, saluting right there. Bruce Goes, thank you so much for tuning in. Phenomenal Mexican. Thank you so much, man. That was AJ versus Ruiz 1. Yeah, the undercard with the women fighters. Yeah, Katie Taylor. Yeah, exactly. Cursor in the house. Thanks so much for tuning in, brother. I just want to salute you guys personally, man. Thank you guys so much. Cursor saluting the OGs, everybody here. Saluting Reggie, saluting them all. Thank you so much, man. Got Stormy B saluting Corner Girl 66. Thank you so much for tuning in, girl. Hey, it's an honor to have you here. Thank you so much, man. Tune in and enjoy. You know what I mean? Bruce Goes says, for a short time, they would read the scores between rounds. Whatever happened to that? Do you guys remember that? The scores being read between rounds? Does anybody remember about that?
Yeah, it was they messed with it for a few, like Canelo versus Austin Trout was open. They call it open scoring, after each round. But it forces the fighter. It was unnatural to me. It forced Trout to be more aggressive because he knew he was behind. I really didn't like it. I guess I was just used to the fights going 12 or 15. Then they score end of the fight. some people like that. They was messing around with it, and they decided to scrap it. But this one thing that a lot of people don't talk about. They never show the judge's face, or they don't allow you to interview the judges. They keep them hidden. You'll see their name, but that's about it. Even when the fights get ready to start, I always thought that was weird, but boxing, the way it's structured, can get away with stuff like that. And the reason that you're not going to have former fighters, judges, they could be commentators, but not judges, because then that would strip the promoter or the in-house fighter of having ex-fighters judges. They want people they can control. So that's why they get them. They get people from other countries and get people you don't know about. You only know their names, but they're very, they don't interview, and they don't have their face shown.
It must be, I guess they're trying to neutral, I guess, right? Trying to be neutral or something like that, right? I'm assuming, because that's right. I mean, they call the referee, they show him on the camera before they fight, when everyone's in the ring, but they don't do it to the judges. That's interesting stuff. What about you, Reggie? You think that's a good idea? Do you think that's a good idea to read the scores between rounds?
I think I'm gonna have to agree with the OG Kurt. But would you say reading it just to the viewing public, or you mean people in the in attendance? If they can find a way to hide it from the fighters, I don't know, but it'll probably still get back to a fighter and causing them to do things against game planning. So, but I think it may be something for the viewers, because now viewers can start drawing stuff into question and putting pressure. I think more pressure needs to be put on these damn sanctioning bodies, man, and these, not the sanction body, but these commissions. And these commissions have to step in there and do something. They know when things are corrupt. And also, I think it's cool to show it to the viewing public, because if a judge's scorecard is popped up and shown a certain way, it makes you draw in the question, like, is this ref even here in this damn fight? Is this ref paying attention to what's going on? And now it puts pressure on a president of a commission, or even after the fight, you can do the same thing looking at it. But in the moment of seeing what happened in the round, and if someone's getting their ass whooped, and a judge gives that fighter the round, that draws in some serious questioning. But I don't know. I think I got to agree with Kurt, but not to where if the cards are to be shown, it should only be shown to those who are viewing the televised card, that they get to see those judges' scorecard.
Yeah, I think that would be nice. What about you, Stormy B? Do you think that the scores should be read between rounds?
As far as in the stadium, maybe they could put it up on the jumbotron or whatever they have, And I'll tell you something. Reggie mentioned something about game plan. The plan should be, now understand this closely, the plan should be to win each round, one round at a time, by either fight count. Okay? But if you know that you are behind, wouldn't it motivate you somewhat to step it up? Wouldn't it motivate you to do better? Unless you're just one of those that are just showing up, right? And you have no intent to really go for it. So that being said, why not show the scores to people? Because there's two things that are going to be revealed out of that. Either it would be honest assessments of what you're seeing round by round, or the misjudgment by those who've been assigned to oversee the bouts and to in the midst of a fight. You got a guy that's winning 5 rounds straight, hands down, and that other George has got it even. Kick him off the panel right then and there.
Definitely. And I think it would serve as a great motivator, if a fighter and their corner, their team sees that they're behind, hey, let's step it up, make the fight more exciting, make it more engaging. It would be a lot more entertaining. So yeah, it would be something to contemplate. Definitely. Thank you, Bruce Goes, for that comment, man. Ogden Knight 801. Thanks so much. Ogden, thanks so much for tuning in, man. Salute to you. Thanks so much. Boxing Conversation, saluting the family there. Ogden, thanks so much, man. Hamza S, what's good, brother? Gamer Girls in the house, what is good? Thanks so much for the support, girl. Let's get down here to the comments real quick. We have here, Bruce Goes talks about Frazier went so many times. George must have hit him on the way down. Yeah. Ogden talks about Paulie. All right, Hamza S. I'm late to the stream. Oh, okay. But have y'all talked about the scoring criteria? Yeah, I just answered a moment ago, right? Kurtis was talking a little bit about that. Surprisingly, a lot of fans and people who are in the sport don't know them. Yeah, so we had Kurtis breaking that down a little bit there a moment ago. We have Derek Bailey in the house. Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much for tuning in. One love to you, man. Thanks so much, guys. Everybody who's tuning in right now. G Funky, we got G Funky in the house. Hey, brother. Remember tomorrow, brother. Just keep that in your agenda, man. Thank you so much, man. G Funky for tuning in, man. So let's continue here, man. I got some something came to mind. Okay, judges in boxing. This is great stuff, man. To conclude this, all right. Actually, let's go to the next point. Let's go to the next point. Actually, this came to mind while we're talking about judges. It's not one of the points in the show, but I do want to chime this in there. I want to fit this in here kind of like a hamburger because we're in the meat. We're in the meat of the show right now. So we talked about, right? I was talking about, mentioning a moment ago as far as, what Stormy B, what he mentioned about, it would be nice if some fighters maybe can be judges, right? And then I started expanding upon that. And I talked about how Abner Mares replaced Paulie Malignaggi. I just want to see your opinions right now concerning this topic, guys. As Paulie Malignaggi, you guys all heard, I'm sure, about the inappropriate comments he was saying, right, recently, which got him fired, right? He got fired. I think that was the right thing to do. Definitely right to fire him. Abner Mares took his place. Now, as far as ringside commentators, it's not part of the bullet points we had, but it's just like live sessions, they grow. I always say it, like, organically, points come out, and I love to talk about them, especially with you guys, so Paulie Malignaggi got fired. Abner Mares, the last I heard, at least, which was today, Abner Mares, it looks like he replaced him. We also talk about Larry Merchant from back in the day. Also, are there commentators right now that are kind of like that, real biased, and start mixing racial things in, which is definitely inappropriate, speaking of other races offensively? Do we have that now? Thankfully, Paulie is out of the game. He's out of here. Get out. We don't want to hear that stuff. Kurtis, do you know of right now? Are there still commentators around like that?
Well, Paulie was the last one. I'm kind of disappointed in Paulie because when he first became a commentator, he was okay.
Yeah.
And then you can see a turn. I don't know why. I guess he was laying in wait. I don't know if he felt comfortable. He got comfortable rather, and he start showing his biases. I'm sitting there listening, and I'm like, Paulie, it just seems like, he was a guy that, showed his true colors, but you got to understand where Paulie's from. Paulie's from Bensonhurst in Brooklyn. Bensonhurst is a very racist city. They killed the black team back in the day. So you have to say, does he come from a culture where he becomes a product of that environment? And that's very interesting to me. Like Larry Merchant, he's that old school kind of racist kind of guy. A commentator is supposed to be about integrity and professionalism. Even if you root for a guy, don't do it openly. The guy just beat your guy. It was a fair fight, and your guy just lost. Me and Wilder is the same race, but I gave all the credit to Tyson Fury because he won. He said he was going to do it, and he won. See, a lot of fans, and boxing is such a compelling sport, Renee. It forces you to be who you are, if you like it or not. Boxing can force you to hold a mirror up to your image. And when you look in that mirror, it may be a guy that you don't like. And You're forced to ask your questions. Am I being biased because I'm the same race as he? And I'm tired of seeing my Italian fighters get pummeled by Mexican and black fighters. I'm just saying, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? You know, a lot of people don't have that ability to do that, but I can turn it off because I've been in boxing for so long. You know, if this guy beat a guy I'm rooting for, I will raise his hand and says, "You were the better man tonight." And a lot of people can't do that, you know. But Paulie just started getting crazy, you know, being biased, saying this and that. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? I heard Larry Merchant say it for years, you know, but Bobby Ches was a great commentator. So was Sean O'Grady. He was a former fighter. You know, Bobby Ches was a former fighter, but he had DUIs, multiple DUIs. He used to break the fight down beautifully, and Showtime got rid of him. A lot of people didn't like Antonio Tarver, but I liked Tarver. Tarver was arrogant, but I liked him. He had a different type of swagger, you know. But I like the old commentators was great. You know, Gil Clancy was great. You know, but I can't name a commentator offhand that I really don't like. Sugar Ray Leonard is terrible. He's horrible. Don't bring him back. I'm getting ready to renew my DAZN subscription, but you know, I love him as a fighter, but horrible as an announcer. You know, so I like Bobby Ches. I like the old announcers. There was a college football announcer. He was very underrated. His name was Keith Jackson. You know, he used to do ABC fights. You know, very underrated. So you know, but Paulie Malignaggi, I was disappointed in because I did like him at first, but he starts showing his true colors.
Definitely. I definitely agree. I remember years ago, Paulie Malignaggi, when I would listen to him as ringside commentator, I was like, wow, really intelligent guy. You know, the way he explains things, kind of like Keith Thurman, you know, quite intelligent, the way he breaks down fights and fighters while they're fighting. And recently, you know, a couple of years ago, ever since he started talking against, you know, a lot against, you know, Wilder, and then now this, it's like, dude, what the heck's your problem? I would think, what's your problem? And maybe it could be that he was just getting comfortable. Actually, a little bit of chat here. They're talking about not saying he's a racist, but real quick, I want to get to that in a moment. But real fast right here, what Hamza was saying. He was always a racist, just like a lot of them are. He was just in the closet with it. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, just like gay entertainers keep that stuff to themselves, until they come out the closet, right? Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, and Derek Bailey would agreeing with what Kurtis was saying right now, that you know, very racist city from where Paulie comes from. Can be that he was a product of his culture. You know, it can be that you know, just like what Kurtis was saying here, Paulie just started changing. Yeah, he just started changing. It is because, you know, he would also commentate, I think, if I'm not mistaken, in UK fights. And then, you know, maybe that UK influence started influencing him, you know, that culture, the people, the fighters, which is fine, right? But then he just started going against other fighters down here in the Americas, especially specifically against, you know, certain races. And it's like totally out of hand, totally out of pocket. And I don't know what the heck his problem is. Reggie Owens, what's your input in all this with Paulie?
I'm glad to see Paulie gone, even though I never listened to his commentary, but I did listen to the interview in which he made those statements. But even every time a fight ended, because when I watch fights, I don't listen to commentary. And the reason why I don't listen to commentary is because of the injection of that racial biases that was being put in there by Jim Lampley, Larry Merchant for so many years. Even as a kid, I used to always, I picked up on their little racial innuendos as a damn young kid. And I used to always get upset after fights of why I never seen fighters either push these guys, check these guys, except Bernard Hopkins would. I always see him do a lot with Jim Gray and with Larry Merchant. But it pushed me away to see clowns like that, who I view as being the weaker of the two when they're face to face. But for some reason, these people are comfortable enough to disrespect these fighters in their face and disrespect them on racial levels. And even before the thing with Floyd, and I was real proud of Floyd when I watched that, and it was after several Floyd fights.
Yeah,
I would kind of see Larry Merchant. Wait, is that the dude name? The old man? Yeah,
Larry Merchant. Yeah,
will give Floyd the shoulder and just hold the mic out while not wanting to look at him, being in disgust that he won this fight. And then when that Ortiz fight came, the level of disgust I was seeing there, and I'm in the house tripping like, man, here this mother effer go doing it again. And Floyd picked up on it by saying, I'm gonna let you go. You never give me my respect. I'm gonna let you go talk to him. And then he gets into it because he got called out and he wants to puff his chest out because he's been doing it so long that he thought he was a tough guy until Floyd and him had to check him. And that's what really woke the world up to what was going on with folks like these reporters when it was been done for so damn long. But so I stopped listening to boxing commentary at that point, and their commentary used to be good. I used to love HBO for its production quality. Things were good, but always an injection of these racial biases from a Larry Merchant. Me looking back, seeing Larry Merchant in his old days as a news reporter, seeing things. So I'm like, this dude probably carried on a level of racial biases because a lot of racial biases and stigmas throughout society come from reporters and media. And that's where Jim Lampley comes from. And now he comes into a predominantly black sport and he starts to slowly inject this BS. And then the injection of the Eastern European thing. And that's what Paulie got caught up in when he starts seeing this rise in a showcasing of European fighters. Because even when he speaks on that about the era of it being the day of the black fighter is gone, and this is things they wish for, and they prop up the European fighter. But where do we see European fighters? We don't see them dominating the sport, not at all. They don't have no home but in one division. Lomachenko isn't a dominant fighter in the division he's in. So where is this European a height in European dominance? It doesn't exist. It's something that these guys have created in their imagination, one to use the media as a tool to kind of sway the focus and thinking of society. And it's a racial focus in thinking that they have tried to inject into society, and it's BS. And it's driven in racism. You see the predominance of the sport being black and Latino dominance in the sport, and they want to write it away, because these folks in this game don't look like them. And it's sad, but that's why I don't listen to boxing commentators at all. Even with my favorite fighter being a commentator, I still don't listen to boxing commentary. The only time I hear it is when I recall a fight and I have the volume playing. But a lot of times I've been able to program myself to where I block out a lot of what they're talking about while watching these fights. But I'm glad to see the clown go. He should have been gone right after making those statements. Then he gets up there, he backs it up even more. Him and Drew Titan was on my Instagram. They was going back and forth, and I was surprised to see Paulie respond. And Paulie really displayed his ignorance during that conversation. And then after the George Floyd incident, him being insensitive to that shit, it was just like, man, this dude is lost. And like you guys are saying about the Bensonhurst, I don't know too much about the community, but you guys speaking on it about it being a deeply racial community. And some people are products of their environment. Some people mask it and they hide it. Paulie had to mask and hide it because he's in a predominantly black sport. He was and he was culturally influenced. You see guys like Paulie who ends up being cultural vultures is what people call them, but a lot of times they live in a confused state, especially when they're young. I didn't seen it throughout my life when I started going around other cultures of people where they may act one way when they're still trying to figure out who they are as young men, and they buy into particular cultures. And then as they begin to grow throughout life, they change, and what they used to be is what they hate. And the people who influenced them into being what they used to be at a young age, they hate. And I think that's what's going on with Paulie. But I'm glad to see a clown like that gone. I think there needs to be more diverse groups on boxing commentary panels, and not the little bullcrap patterns that I see in TV. And this is why I not control, but I try to influence what my kids watch. I don't want my kids being too whitewashed by what they see in media. And this is about where you commonly see it can be a panel. If it's a 5-member panel, they sprinkle in one black guy up on the panel. And I think those days are over with. Things need to reflect more of what global society looks like. Global society isn't white. So I think that issue needs to change. People need to voice their opinions about their disdain towards seeing these type of things, and ask for more fairness, not fairness, but just things to be be authentic when things are presented. And that's just the way I feel about that stuff.
Definitely. This is why I'm it's good to see that Paulie that they fired him. I mean, it's great. Stormy B man, what was your reaction what do you think about this whole Paulie Malignaggi, commentators like him or Larry Merchant in general? What's your input on that?
What took him so long to get his ass out of there? That's what I wanted to know. And anyone like him that has a microphone in front of their face, in front of millions of people on a broadcast in which you supposedly are representing a network, not your own personal thoughts and feelings. Okay? Because you can leave that in the locker room, when you're getting dressed. As far as I'm concerned, when you're sitting in front of that microphone, it says Showtime on the mic. It don't say Paulie. It don't say Paulie on the mic. So the thing about it is, this is what the country has become. But it's a great thing that shit runs from the top down. It don't run from the bottom up. So when you look at who you got in the White House, okay, meaning that you have a president who's unfiltered. He says what he wants off the top of his head or whatever. And the country has taken up that type of psychology. And they say, well, you know what? I'm going to let everybody know how I feel. But you got to be aware of consequences and repercussions. Okay. And you have to be aware of what's known as accountability. See, the president has press agents and everything who can flip things for him and everything. Well, what he really meant was they're paid to do that. But when you're a man standing on your own merit with your microphone in front of your face, you have to understand that you're representing that company. And when that company starts to take a hit economically, you got to go. Okay. But my thing is, what took it so long? They were probably checking the pulse to see how much it was going to affect them and their network economically. And guess what? Paulie had to go because they realized the bottom line was, with his representation, they were too far off track. They have too much to lose because HBO is no longer around, remember. And it's amazing, as Reggie said, you come into the viewers and you're spewing this stuff. It's actually very ugly, okay? And remember, to watch a broadcast of entertainment, it's an escape for them, for their everyday lives and the everyday grind that they know when they walk outside their door. They see the ugliness in their neighborhoods, on their jobs and everything. So they've tuned in, entertained for a moment, a couple of hours out of their day or night, and they don't need to hear your hate when they deal with it every time they walk out their door.
Exactly. Yep.
So you got to go. And anyone like you got to go. Okay. It's funny that we had one of the best boxing shows of all time, Tuesday Night Fights, and Sean O'Grady and Al Albert were on that show. They did none of this. And that show had great ratings, and they took that off the air. These men were going from city to city across the U.S., broadcasting fights 4 times a month. Okay. And they never had this kind of stuff. Never. And they were on for well over a decade. What was wrong with that? Absolutely nothing. The thing about HBO, they would come on every so often when there was a big match or a pay-per-view thing. Here they come. So we had to deal with Larry Merchant because he wasn't on every night. You understand? He wasn't on every week, but he was on enough that people were like, hey, man, enough is enough. And when they really said that, that's when the big names began to leave the network. You know, Larry Holmes was at the end of his career, but Mike Tyson came behind him. Mike Tyson left. Okay. Later on, you had Leroy Jones and then Floyd Mayweather. Then, Floyd left. Oscar De La Hoya, it didn't bother him too much because he had a whole different thing going on for himself. But if you look at it for what it is, people don't want that mess, really. At the end of the day, they don't. They tune in to be entertained and to get away and have a break out of their day. It's like if you went to a bar after work, happy hour, and someone served you your drink, and then something broke out in the place and made you have to leave, and you couldn't sit there and enjoy your drink. It's like, this was my one moment after work. I just wanted to relax and have my beer or whatever. And this stuff happens, and now I got to go home and I'm upset and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing, but they were doing it in your household. People were beginning to turn off. But what took Showtime so long? I don't know. But I think it should be a call to any broadcast in any sport.
True.
Going forward. Check yourself before you wreck everything else.
I want to.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to say something about HBO, which I think is very important, and I think it flew over everybody's head. See, HBO became the evil empire because they kind of got sick of Latino and Black fighters, and I'm gonna tell you why. They had an agenda, an Eastern European agenda. See, Gennady Golovkin, better known as Triple G, his career didn't pan out the way they wanted to, because if he would have knocked out Canelo in grave fashion, then he would have become a mega star. But because people were saying how Canelo was scared of him and stuff like that. So when they fought and the fight was a draw, and then they fought again, it didn't really pan out for Golovkin. And the Danny Jacobs fight, that was very disappointing to HBO, because they start saying maybe he wasn't the fighter we thought he was, because they would promote him as a killer, and they gave him a commercial. People forget he had an Apple commercial, and him and Sergey Kovalev, how they were saying he was indestructible, and they gave Ward a 3-fight contract. But they told Andre Ward that the last fight in that contract, you're going to have to fight Sergey Kovalev. They forced Ward to fight Kovalev, and Ward was going to do it anyway. But the reason that fight was closed is because that Ward was still rusty because of his layoff. And when he knocked Ward down and he was he was going for the knockout, you see how excited Jim Lampley got. I didn't miss that. And then when Ward, some people say Kovalev, he could have gave him the fight, but Kovalev let Ward steal rounds at the end of the fight, and they gave Ward the fight. And then the second fight, the Russ was knocked off, and then Kovalev lost. Then he lost to Alvarez. See, my point being, Kovalev and Golovkin disappointed HBO, because HBO thought they had a winning package. They got white skin. But what the white American boxer fan fooled them, because they were saying, even though they have white skin, with that accent, Euro trash, they're not one of us. He's not a Jerry Cooney or Tommy Morrison. You see how fast they caught on, because he was one of them. They was one of them, Cooney and Morrison. But Golovkin and Kovalev wasn't. And that fooled HBO. That's why, after their disappointing careers, HBO left boxing. It's not a mistake.
Good point. It all connects. We see, a pattern going on there. And real quick, let me get to these. There's something I wanted to talk about here with, great comments, man. I like the comments they put out, the brothers here. Real quick, where was it? Right here. Yeah. Not saying he's a racist, but Joe Goosen, we're still talking about the commentators, can be biased. Lennox, and I agree, Lennox has to correct him all the time. It's true. It's like he's rooting against black fighters. It seems like that. Maybe he's not racist, right? But I have noticed that when Lennox Lewis and them two are together talking, commentating, it seems like sometimes they, do little arguments, right? I don't really favor always Joe's commentary. What can you say about that, Reggie, about Goosen and about him commentating?
Man, like I said, I don't listen to commentary. Like I'm
right.
I'm not listen to it. But after we finish that, as you go around, I want to talk about cancel culture and about people using this as a protective wording mechanism that sits like bullcrap to me. But I'll let you pass it around. Also, we can get back to people using cancel culture is a way to kind of sway people from having to have consequences by their bullcrap statements.
Definitely. Actually, real quick, so what Stormy B said, I don't want to jump this because I was going to mention it a moment ago. It just passed me. Now it's because so many things come at once when you guys are commentating and comments and things like that, or the chat and things like that. And okay, so because I take notes while I'm listening, and great stuff that's coming out here. Here, what Stormy said a moment ago. We have to kind of like what the president of the United States right now, saying things, outlandish things out of nowhere. He just says what he wants, says what he thinks. Paulie did that for a while, where he was, he wasn't being professional. He wasn't doing his job, which is commentating in a professional manner. He was mixing in his personal opinions, his personal biases, his personal racist standpoint, right? And using, his platform that he had, where he got fired from, to express his personal beliefs and points, which is not the way to do it. That's not professional. He wasn't being professional. And interesting what Stormy B-Man said, that, you got to, check yourself before you wreck yourself. You got to think before you act, and this can be, Paulie Malignaggi can serve as a great example of what can be done to a person who doesn't do what he's supposed to do as far as commentating in this case. Terrence Crawford recently tweeted, and it got my attention. He tweeted the other day, he said, I'm going to read it right here. I searched it up real quick while Stormy was talking about this. Terrence Crawford said, "For every action, there's a reaction. So be careful what actions you make, because some can be your last." Whoa. I'm going to repeat that. For every action, there's a reaction. Wow. So be careful. This is exactly what happened to Paulie. So be careful what actions you make, because some can be your last. So those actions that Paulie gave, through speech, because we know that speaking is an action. It's a verb. It's an action. The reaction was him getting fired, so we got to be very careful with what we say, what I'm saying, anywhere in public, and, in a professional manner, being professional about things. That's why me personally, I like to be professional on this platform that I have, in my YouTube platform, because it's true. What I'm saying, what Bud Crawford saying, what Stormy B-Man said a moment ago. We got to really think before we speak, think before we act. What I'm saying? So what do you think, Stormy, concerning this point that Hamza S brought out there? Joe Goosen, do you think he's kind of, a sketchy commentator also, or what do you think about him?
Well, I think that, to be frank, and just to put it out there.
Yeah, go ahead.
That there are a lot of Caucasian men out here in culture, right, that think that what they think is all that matters. And in that alone, there's a bias, because when people live life from a different perspective than you, that doesn't mean because you don't live it, they don't exist. And when someone has to be corrected all the time, they're being corrected due to their ignorance. Understand it. That's why you'll hear someone like myself, or even Kurt, we say it all the time. We learn every day. Even though we have knowledge of things or experiences in this subject and content that we speak on with boxing, we don't know it all. We could not possibly know it all. But the wonderful thing is that we could be involved in a discussion, because within the discussion, there's a reciprocity, information being exchanged from one point to another. And in this instance of this particular topic, what has happened is someone paid tremendously from blurring the lines of where you are and the purpose that you're there for, you see? And in that's why I said, what took so long? Because you have to, at the end of the day, be accountable. Now, had the man stuck to honest and sincere boxing commentary, he could still be where he was. But there are others in other sports who got a microphone. Their heads should be on the chopping block too. It is now a point where you have to be accountable. The networks and You may have had a so-called professional career. However, your personality, who you are as a person, your background and all of that should not precede what they hired you for.
Exactly.
Once you blur those lines, you are subject to the wrath of who's listening. If I'm speaking on boxing, my knowledge of the sport, my interaction and experiences that I have, you can't challenge that. You can only dislike what I'm saying or what I have to offer, but those are my experiences and what I have to offer. Now, if I begin to say something personal and be geographically, community-wise, regardless of whether they are male or female and things like that, and I get into that, then it becomes I'm walking on eggshells, and you know how eggs break. I'm at the mercy then. That's why it's always been noted, discretion is the better part of valor. That's
Definitely.
what I have to offer on that.
Definitely, man. And, all you guys who are in the chat, everybody's tuning in. This is why I like to have you guys here. Reggie, Stormy, Kurtis. We learn so much. You know what I mean? We learn from each other. I learn life principles. It's boxing and everything that relates to boxing. And it trickles down and it applies to our personal lives. All this applies. Important principles in life, man. And I love it. I love this stuff, man. This is great. Let me get back real quick to the comments. We're going to continue here. Hamza S says, I mute them. Yeah, as far as the commentaries. Anyone ever saw UK commentary? They're even worse as far as bias. But yeah, I agree. It seems like they're more nationalistic, right? They're not racist. It seems like that, right? It kind of reminds me, I think one of the best examples is Eddie Hearn, which is not a good example, like, him come to America, sticking his nose up in the air, thinking he's going to do this and that. I'm going to conquer, sit down, Al Heyman, sit down, Bob Arum. You don't know what the heck you're doing. We're here to control things. And it seems like, more nationalistic pride. But, who knows, right, with that guy. Paulie was he wore baggy clothes, had braids, tried to use hip-hop lingo and bit our swag. Yeah, that was back in the day, huh? That's true. Bruce Go says it was a sad day when Tuesday night fights, on USA was canceled. I think Kurtis Anderson was talking about that. Yeah, Hamza S. These white fans moved to MMA and HBO, tried to get them back by pushing these Russians. It didn't work out the way they hoped to. Yeah, exactly. It didn't work out with Triple G. It didn't work out with Kovalev. We have here, they weren't even Kelly Pavlik. Yes, facts. Oh, we got Ack in the house. I didn't see you, man. Jab Jamboree, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you so much, man. Go subscribe to Jab Jamboree. Go subscribe, everyone who's listening, whoever's tuning in. All you guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, man. Sergio Mora is the best at calling fights and keeping it real. Sergio Mora, all right. That's cool. That's cool. We're glad to hear Jab. They're saluting everybody. Thank you guys so much, man, for tuning in. Now, let's get to the next point, man. I mean, this is great stuff you guys are talking about here. I love your input, guys. So let's get to the next point. All right. We got advantages and disadvantages of social media in the sport of boxing. Well, I'm just going to keep it like that. Reggie, what do you think about that? What are the advantages and disadvantages of social media in this day and age, specifically in the sport of boxing?
I think that the advantages are major. I'll start with the disadvantages. The disadvantages for me is people's misuse of the platforms, spewing out, buffooning, acting besides themselves, propping themselves up in unrealistic ways and just putting out misinformation. That's the only disadvantage, the true disadvantage I see within social media. There's a lot of misinformation that gets put out there. And it's bad when people who have a greater following, greater influence, is putting out mixed messages out here over these platforms. And depending on who the audience base is, especially if they're misinforming a younger audience base, that can be one of the disadvantages of social media, being it's such a powerful platform, just like television has always been. And television has always done that throughout society. Television is responsible for the dumbing down of society, the miseducation of society based on the agendas being used. Now, people can take these tools because it has put the power in people's hands, and they can go about the miseducation particular people in society. Now, the advantages is now that the power's in your hand. The self-promotion is in your hand, and the access and ability for fans to interact with you are within your hands. Now, some people, the disadvantages is not opening yourself enough, not too much, but opening yourself to fans, so that way they have a way of seeing what's going on, a way of communicating, a doors open to them versus how things were in the past. You only have to wait on certain certain networks that will cover the sport. The realm is open in hundreds of thousands of different areas within this thing. I like the social media thing. I wonder what it had been like if you had the personalities like an Ali with social media, where he didn't have to rely on certain networks. Sugar Ray Robinson, if they had it, it'd have been a great thing. And I think they'll use it the way that effective people use social media today. And I think when you're interfaced with a platform like that, there's a lot of things that go on with the power you can have with these tools, and you have to be responsible with the way in which you use a tool like social media. It takes you out to where it was always a term like in business when I'm going to business school about the world being flat, not in terms of these people with these misinformed theories about the earth being flat, but making the world flat as far as how information is transferred back and forth between the continents. So now you have opened the world. So you probably got over 3 billion. You probably got way over half of the world's population on these platforms. So you have access to over 1 billion people. You're not just speaking locally or what is that, nationally. You're speaking around the world. You're a global presence in the world. And some people use it properly, some people don't. But there's just endless possibilities when it comes to social media. Even when you start looking at the way in which you can use social media for pushing business, thinking of it in boxing terms of how they can push this thing. Promoters have to become more innovative, more revolutionary in the way in which they think about how to go about pushing things through social media. And I think during this current time where things are shut down, social media becomes the most important tool for sports period, especially for the sport of boxing. Social media is going to be that platform that they have to shift their presence to, and have to shift it away from just the networks. The networks are just there to put a camera on this stuff and showcase it there, but to spread the promotion and the influence and growth of the sport is right here on social media. But I'll go ahead and pass it.
Yeah, I would just imagine, what would happen, if we had social media and with the amazing legends of back, of yesteryear, Sugar Ray Robinson, you know what I mean? All the greats, Oscar De La Hoya, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on and on. You guys all know them. How would that be? Especially what you said a moment ago, Muhammad Ali. Wow. As amazing as he was, in interviews and things like that, apart from fighting, obviously we all know the game he brought in the ring. Apart from that, how he spoke, how he expressed himself, how he just attracted and just engaged the audience in his interviews and things. Imagine what he would have done with social media. So what do you think about it, Stormy B? What are advantages, disadvantages of social media and boxing nowadays?
The disadvantages happen to be that everybody don't need a camera and microphone in front of their damn faces.
Right.
Period. Point blank. That's it. The advantages, as touched on by Reggie, that you could get the promoters out of the way. You can actually get your brand out to the people much faster, and you can have personal contact with people where they can get a feel for who you are and what character you have as far as why I should support this. That door being open to the masses, you could have supporters from certain angles that you could never dream of. being a person that could be a role model, let's say, that now becomes even more important because you could reach young ones, okay? And there are a lot of households that allow young ones to deal with social media. So bear in mind, if you are out there and you're trying to start your brand, you have to keep that in mind. And if you do it in a positive manner, that household that has those young ones that may allow them to support you and follow, then even the heads of those households may support and follow because of how you're representing. So there's a way for that to impact, looking at it in that manner, you see. And then also another way that it impacts you is whatever your goal is, to get a line of support behind you to attain and reach goals is very important. So you have to have something that people can vibe with. It doesn't mean that everyone has to vibe with it, but it has to be of a certain stature and level and consciousness that people can hold on to. Being a fighter for the little guy, someone who has been pushed back, stepped on, things like that, that's a tremendous cross to bear, and you can gain tremendous support behind that. Being a champion of the people. See, Ali lived it. We're now able to do this so popular as he became. And remember, it was the character of the man. Yes, he was an accomplished athlete and a world professional fighter, accomplished in his sport. But he was also a champion of people and a champion for causes that represent people. So when you're able to go out there social media wise, you have to have this in mind. Stop thinking about the damn dollars. Do you know that money was meant to be used, okay, in exchange for goods? It wasn't meant to be hoarded. Okay, because when you leave, guess what happens? You don't take it with you, huh? It will transfer across your hands just like it did every other man that lived on this earth before you. But it's what you do while you're here that makes all the difference in the world, and why anyone should remember anything about you. So social media, if you're looking at it in the proper perspective and utilizing it in a proper manner as a tool, you can get exactly what you would like out of it.
Awesome. Awesome. Hey, Stormy, this is a kind of side thing. Have you ever thought about writing a book, man?
Actually, I have.
Yeah, because you have it. You definitely have it, man. I mean, just a side question, man. Cool. Hey, Kurtis, so what do you think, man? Advantages and disadvantages of social media and boxing?
Well, the advantages with social media get your name out there. I'm not a fan of social media,
right?
You know, Instagram and Facebook, because it's just a lot of jaw jacking, a lot of click bait material. But I understand what the new millennials would say is a big part of our lives now. You know, millions and upon tens and hundreds of millions of followers. You know, streaming and everything. I understand that, but see, fighters like Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Robinson and Joe Louis, they didn't need social media. The social media was the press conference. The social media was their enigmatic personalities. Muhammad Ali once bet a guy on the street that, you know, he started from one end of the block, and he said, before I get to the other end, I won't be able to, because halfway through the block, I will be surrounded. And that's exactly what happened. You know, Muhammad Ali's social media was his mouth, word of mouth, press conference. You know, he had such a big personality. You know, boxing was on a different stage. It was the fighters' personality and their aura that was their social media. They didn't need promotion. Sugar Ray Robinson was basically the first super diva of boxing. One fighter that benefited from social media was Floyd Mayweather. Oscar De La Hoya had the female fan base. Ali had network TV, and Sugar Ray Leonard had network TV. And like Bob Hope specials and D. Martin roasts. Ali was a fighter, but he was a celebrity as well. He talked somebody off the ledge. He was everywhere. Had a doll. My brother had it for Christmas. He had a cartoon. He used to advertise roach spray. And Mike Tyson as well, network TV and his Darth Vader-like personality. Mike Tyson is hosting Shark Week on National Geographic. Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones might be the biggest fight of 2020, and that's sad. I'm not happy because I don't want to see them. I don't want to see two old men fighting, but that might be the biggest fight, on September 12th. Happy birthday, Mom. And, that might knock Canelo off his date. I don't think he's going to fight on that date. And that's something to say about boxing because there's no crossover stars in boxing. Canelo has a built-in fan base. I don't see a star, man. You could say Spence or Wilder, but not at that level, not at that the way it should be. And that's boxing as a whole. But social media, fighters can talk to each other and jaw jack with each other. It's good for somebody like Ryan Garcia, to promote themselves. But you must have the opponents to go to the next level, regardless of social media, because you can. You could be on social media every day and not fight anybody. How far it's going to take you?
Yep.
Where if you're on social media and Facebook and you're fighting good opponents and winning, then you're going to get somewhere. So Floyd Mayweather really benefited from the 24/7 documentaries and the social media. He was that fighter that really took his career to the next level. It was carefully planned out. But the old fighters like Sugar Ray Robinson, they was out in the street, and Muhammad Ali, they was, that's when fighters came in your neighborhood, were walking down the street like it's nothing. You can walk up to them, so they didn't need it. But this is 2020, I understand. But one thing I don't like before I close out is, mixing boxing with YouTube fighters. Oh, that's terrible. I don't like that.
I know. Yeah.
That's a sad day for boxing when Devin Haney said, well, I need a promotion, and he was on the card, so, I was like, much to my dismay, I disagree with it because boxing can hold its own. It don't need to be mixed up with some, wannabe skateboarding fighter. You become a YouTube sensation. Now you put a live fighter, a good fighter on the card with a YouTube fighter, and the YouTube fighter was the headliner. It just made boxing look very, very weak and very bad, So, social media is to be held in its proper content, to promote yourself. But I could really do without it. But I understand it's 2020 and things change.
Yeah, exactly. Lawrence Williams in the house. Thank you so much, brother Lawrence Williams, for tuning in. Thank you so much, man. You guys are awesome. Yeah, I agree, man. And also now we're seeing and not only a YouTuber, now we got an NBA player in the mix. I mean, come on, man. This is just and actually what came to mind right now is Ryan Garcia, what Kurtis was talking about right here. Hamza actually relates that, says, look at what social media did for a guy like King Ryan. Yes, Ryan Garcia, he hasn't done much. He definitely hasn't done much, but he reaches a lot of feds who don't even care for, of course, and he gets mentioned with fighters who have accomplished way more. I mean, yeah, that's the advantage it has. But what we got to see now with Ryan in this case is he has to balance it out with fighting. He has to get his butt in the ring and start fighting more. You know what I'm saying? Definitely. But it has served a lot for him in that aspect, right? Social media makes you think before you do or say it. Definitely. We got to think before we really type down things now. Somebody's going to see it. Oh, yes, somebody, and the world is open to see it. You have to cross over to sell big numbers with pay-per-view. Yeah, Lawrence Williams. What's good, brother? Thanks so much, man. Lawrence Williams talking a little bit about DWTS and WrestleMania helped Floyd cross over to. Yeah, that's true. Very true. I remember when Floyd Mayweather did that thing with the show, Big Show or whatever the heck. I don't really watch. Man, the last time I watched wrestling was so many years ago. But with Big Show, I think. Then he slapped Big Show and knocked him out or something like that. I don't know, right? But yeah, it did help him cross over definitely. So yeah, man. So I think we're gonna close it off here. I haven't gotten really into other points to talk about. So Reggie, Owens, any last words, man, to conclude the show? Man, I had a ball with you guys, man. Always.
Oh, yes, indeed, man. My last thing I want to close out about cancel culture, and I hear a lot of people
Yeah. Go ahead.
about cancel culture and
Yeah.
about how it takes away from freedom of speech and them seeing it. But it's funny how it becomes a thing now that Caucasian bigotry is a thing that's being kind of not victimized, but being hit based by this, because the injection of a lot of what's put out by white bigotry is what makes American such an unstable society, and it's the thing that has to have consequences behind it. Anytime you spewing out hateful racial misinformation, you need to be targeted for it. And there ain't nothing that people use these terms of cancel culture and this and that. Nah, it's called being punished for your responsibility, and especially when you're doing it from a hateful standpoint. It's nothing but hateful rhetoric, and it doesn't need to be broadcasted, especially in sports. I think certain language people need to be held responsible, especially when you're injecting racial bullcrap, because the stuff that Paulie injected, it's not factual, and there's nothing that he can speak on that supports his claims about Black folks dominance being gone. The same thing with Larry Merchant coming on to the PBC program, making such a statement. People like that need to be canceled, and I think cancel culture is necessary. It ain't even I don't even know I'm using that word, but I think it's bullcrap hearing people use such a stupid ass word called cancel culture. No, she's being punished for making statements that have no validity to them, but outside of your whole racial agenda, your whole propping up of particular races based on your insecurities and stuff. And you want to put that out into society on particular platforms that are visited by a spectrum of everybody around the world. And I think it's bullcrap. I think people need to, because people talk this First Amendment right bullcrap, but there's consequences to the words you speak. You can't speak violently and then claim a First Amendment right to it. There's a consequence behind the language that you use. So Paulie being fired was a necessary fire, and it should have happened earlier when he made the statements. But nobody spoke this stuff about the firings of Nick Cannon in none of the same language, or the reactions. And a lot of this crap comes from this idiot in the White House. He's the one who I hear use this cancel culture term. The same thing with fake news, as you hear regurgitating of certain language by particular people, and I know where it comes from. But that's my thing. People who say stupidish on particular platforms that come from a place of hate, they need to be gone. And this is why we come into a place where we're having so many deeply heated political arguments, and it's not based on what Black folks are just coming out here talking. Is because we always having to address this issue of American bigotry, and it's bad when it's being put on platforms. But that's all I got.
Yeah, definitely, man. And Paulie was made an example of. I mean, that's the good thing here. He was made an example of, and hopefully it will get better concerning these aspects, speaking up, before thinking, especially in boxing commentating, man, what we're talking about here. So, I mean, hopefully, those things straighten out in that aspect. And we don't see much of that anymore in the sport. We don't see any of that. More like we don't see any of that in the sport anymore. We don't want to see it. We don't want to hear it. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully, people will see that as an example, firing Paulie, putting somebody else, who is more, level headed in those aspects. So definitely, man. Actually, you know what? Before we go, Stormy B, me and Reggie talked. I think if I'm not mistaken, me and Reggie did talk about it. Yeah, we did. And the last show we had one, me and Reggie, I think it was last week, right? We had a show, me and you, and we talked about this. Stormy, what do you think about the fight with Leo Santa Cruz and Tank Davis?
I think it's a fight that can definitely let boxing viewers know exactly who both men are. I happen to not think very much of both fighters, and I don't mean it to sound disrespectful, but I think they both have been disrespectful to the sport and to themselves for their careers. So I view it as a situation where someone's going to have to step up, and whoever steps up in this fight might be able to garner some kind of respect out of it, but I don't expect it to go where a lot of people think it may go. It's one of those matches. Again, it's going to come down to the individual.
Yeah.
Who really wants to state their claim? This is an opportunity for Leo Santa Cruz more than it is for Tank Davis. Tank Davis should be fighting and should be stepping up. I've never seen such a young guy get so much push and has done so little in the ring. It's like you gotta do it in the ring. Your popularity, all of that doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't mean anything, because your fans, your supporters, the people who think well of you and high of you and all of that, not near one of them can throw a punch for you. You got to do it in the ring. And I don't give accolades out to people who haven't accomplished anything. So I just want to see the fight take place, see who can step up and show their wares, and go from there and continue to step up. Not go from there and be like, okay, I got past here, so now people need to show me and pat me on my back and all of that and let me ride it out a little bit. No, it's time to step it up. These guys are of an age, do you realize that Sugar Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns and those guys, they were fighting. They were doing it. They were, back and forth 2-3 times. These guys, you hear their names so much in the sport, and they talk about who's the face of boxing and everything. The face of boxing has black eyes. You can't tell who's the face of boxing.
Right.
Huh? With all the bruises and busted nose and busted lips that the sport is carrying around with these guys, not just Santa Cruz and Tank Davis, but everybody who's at the top of the sport, who is a champion and everything else, who don't want to fight nobody, but want all the accolades and want all the dollars and everything else, and for us to kiss their asses. No, fight somebody. And then maybe we could give you some support for the next fight. But until you start to do that and string them together, man, I just hope they go in there and beat each other up. Then we're going to find out what's inside, because that's what boxing is about. It's mano a mano. You get in there and you show your wares. It's not about escaping with a bag. It's called boxing, man. Otherwise, just stay on damn social media and be like those guys who they gave a boxing show to that they didn't deserve on the DAZN app. 2 guys just beefing on social media and everything, and then get in there with some gloves, because that's what y'all doing. I've seen the sport. I've seen professional fighters out there. You know my show, The 3 Wise Men of Boxing. We talk about the real guys, on that show, and these guys want us to give them respect. Respect for what? I've had more street fights than actual fights they've had. This is freaking ridiculous. And stop giving it to these guys, and they ain't earned a damn thing. The boxing commissions help with that as well, giving them belts and trinkets and everything, and giving them paths to avoid one another and ways out. And you can be awarded something where you can, even if you lose, you still the man and all of that. What is this?
Yeah.
Instead of going out there in boxing trunks and gloves, maybe they ought to go out there with some tiaras on and some tutus.
Yep.
It's ridiculous. That's all I got.
Definitely, man. Definitely. Kurtis, what you got? What do you got on Leo versus Tank?
I think it's a good fight. A lot of people say I'm rough on today's fighters. I'm just spoiled. I'm a Yankee fan, so I'm spoiled. 27 world championships. I'm spoiled with good music. I listen to Marvin Gaye and Stevie Wonder and John Coltrane. And matter of fact, 25 years ago today, my favorite hip hop album came out, Only Built for Cuban Links with Raekwon, August 1st, 1995. It's been that long. 25 years. Anyway, I'm happy with the lineup in today's boxing. I'm just saying, I won't believe it unless they're in the ring. Teofimo trying to price himself out. Bob is offering him $1.2 million to fight Lomachenko. He talking about it's too low. I'm like, too low for that weight division? I'm like,
Wow.
no, that's good money. Take that money. If you beat him, then you become a bigger star.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear no, I'm not taking a fight, all that tough talk. But Tank has to come in shape because Leo throws a lot of punches. It could work for Leo or against him because Tank gonna counter him. Tank can make the fight easy if he goes to Leo's body and break him down. But if he headhunt, and Leo is on his game, it could be a very interesting and tough fight for Tank because he's short in stature, and a tall guy should always throw the right hand over the short fighter's shoulder. He'll hit him every time. That's just a little tidbit. But I favorite Tank, but it could be tough. I don't know if he can make the weight. I got to see what kind of shape he comes in at. He missed weight 2-3 times, and so the jury's still out on Tank. I'm not convinced. I know I can see the skills. I can see his skills at a lot of fighters, but they don't hone them. They don't dedicate themselves. When you have your whole neighborhood in the locker room, that's not good. When you on your wife's shoulder sleeping like Wilder, like he's a baby, that's not good. So these fighters don't prepare themselves like the old fighters. But the Charlo card with Devenchenko versus Jamal Charlo, that's a potential upset. Jamel Charlo versus Jason Rosario, who reminds me so much of Murky Sosa, that's a good fight. I think Jamel gonna knock Rosario out because you have to box Charlo. You can't fight fire with fire. You got November 21st, Danny Garcia versus Errol Spence Jr.
Yeah.
That's been announced. I'm looking forward to that. See what as Earl is the same fighter. Very rarely a fighter come back from a car accident. Vinny Pazienza did it. He broke his neck and came back stronger. So I give Vinny Pazienza a lot of credit for doing that. So we'll see. There's some good other matchup that's on the horizon. And I'm looking forward to. But Renee, I won't believe it unless those two fighters are in the ring.
Very true. Very true. Box conversation, real quick, man. We're about to go. Real quick, man. Just to get this the people here in the chat. That the clarification on that question. Sensitivity counseling. What's that all about? Reggie, maybe you can brief it up real quick.
I don't know. Maybe I think I've heard of that where people make offensive and racial type statements. They send them. This is a way to scapegoat them out of what they state and send them to these type of trainings.
Okay. Perfect. All
right. Keep the job.
Yeah. All right. Right on. Jab Jamboree said, talk Stormy facts. Definitely. All you cats were on today. Thanks so much, man. I love you guys. Kurt, we got to talk. Oh, Kurt, he wants to talk to Act, right? Kurt, he wants you guys to talk there. So right on, guys. Reggie Owens, any last words before we leave?
Man, it was good coming on this Saturday, get my day started talking some boxing, man. I enjoyed that, man. Unfortunately, the 2 hours have come this damn quick. But shit, it's barbecue time for me. But man, I enjoyed the show, man. Really enjoyed it. Great topics, great conversation with the OGs.
Definitely, man. Thanks so much. Remember, everybody who is in the chat, everyone who's tuning in, Boxing Conversations with Reggie Owens 2. He has a backup channel also. Go subscribe there. Stormy B, any last words, brother?
Oh, great show, man. Thank you for having me on. I enjoy coming on your platform. You always have a lot of organized topic and bullet points to go over. I appreciate that. I appreciate being able to be on here again, reunited with Reggie Owens and Kurtis Anderson, aka Kurt Sugar, and yourself, Renee Box Young. Man, you coming on strong, and I enjoy what you're doing with your platform. So thanks for having me, and salute to everybody that's out there in the chat, and thanks for watching.
Definitely. Thanks so much, Stormy B. And thank you. Go subscribe to Stormy B, everybody. If anybody is not subscribed to him, I'm sure you guys all are. But if anybody isn't, go subscribe to him. Great content he has out there. I mean, just amazing stuff. He also has Kurtis on the show also. Reggie from time to time goes on the show. I mean, great stuff he has pushing out. Kurtis, any last words, bro?
Yeah, I'll call you in an hour, man. I still got your. Oh, no, give me a call. I do got your number, man. Call anytime, but Act Reacher. You got a great platform. I took a step back from YouTube, just doing some other things, been watching TV and stuff like that, and had a tragedy and get over that. But I love your show, man. You ask quality questions, man. It feels like I'm on a throwback show, and you're a true boxing fan, man. You know your boxing as well. I can't wait to part 5.
Definitely,
So
definitely.
yeah. So anytime you want me on, I'm there for support, and salute to the chat. Thanks for stopping by, and Reggie Owens, and Stormy B, man, yourself, man. I'm glad that I was on the panel, man, and peace to everybody. Enjoy your Saturday.
Definitely, man. Love you guys. Thank you so much, Reggie, Stormy, Kurtis, for coming on. Could you guys just stay, like always, right? Just about 2 minutes right after the show, right? Okay, so thank you guys,
Yes, sir.
everybody. Thank you so much, chat. One more time, I just want to give a shout out to everybody who was, as far as the chat is concerned, Phenomenal Mex, and thank you so much, Bruce Goes, Cursor, if I didn't mention any, sorry, Corner Girl 66, Ogden, everybody, Hamza S, Gamer Girl, popped in. Thanks so much, Derek Bailey, all you guys, man, everybody who was in here. I thank you, Ack Reacher, obviously, the Jab Jamboree. Thank you, Lawrence Williams. All you guys, thanks so much. Until part 5, peace out. Everybody stay safe. Please stay safe out there. Take care of you. Take care of your loved ones, man, because we're in a crazy days, with this whole Corona stuff. So take care. Till the next show, guys. Peace out. Thanks so much. Shouts from the South. Peace, fam.
Peace.